while we're letting our friends in, I'm going to put the link in the chat that has a folder with all of our resources for today. So just right off the bat, you're going to have everything that we're going to be talking about. We will be putting some links in the chat just for individual different strategies and interventions that you'll want to look at. But this one folder has everything, okay? So don't feel like you're missing anything if you're not jotting down every single one of the links. It's all in this folder.
Tons of really, really good resources that you can utilize. So we're excited to share all of that with you. So the beauty of this webinar is not just information on, you know, I've attended so many webinars, especially right now with the pandemic, and I feel like I'm watching these and I hear some really good stuff and I'll write some notes down, but I'm also waiting for that. Give me something good that I can take back, you know. And I feel like sometimes I'll join some webinars and I don't get very much other than maybe, oh, that was a nice quote. I'm going to remember that one. But our goal is to provide you with resources that you can utilize the very next day, next week, right now. And all of these are ready to go. So they've been developed by teachers for educators. So we're super excited to share some of those resources on how we can make, you know, SEL just be the heartbeat of the classroom and what that looks like. So we're super excited to share all of those resources with you. And I guess that kind of jumps into maybe my intro. Maybe I can share some of that while maybe some more folks are trying to join. I am a coordinator, a district coordinator in Central California, Bakersfield City School District. And we actually partnered with CLS years ago, and we are still thought partners with them. They have been amazing throughout this process. So through their work, I could say, you know, we are who we are and the work that we do. So CLS has been monumental when it comes to that. So we still work with them. We have that thought partnership, and I'm glad that we can still collaborate and have these amazing events like we're doing today. So with that, we do have about 1,600 teachers, and with the pandemic, we knew that there was going to be challenges with our kids, and we needed to meet the needs of the whole child. And if kids feel like they're loved and they belong and they're safe, then they will thrive in any environment. So we encountered probably everything you've encountered, whether it's virtual behaviors, virtual classroom management, virtual behavior management. And we realized that SEL can really help support a lot of those pieces, because the more you connect, the less you correct. I've always said that if you can connect more with your kids, you will have to correct less. So some kids might not want to turn in work or want to show up to class because maybe they feel like they don't belong. And not that it's the teacher's fault. Sometimes we don't do a very good job at helping our kids build relationships with each other. We do it, you know, maybe individually, because I know I did that as a teacher. I was really good at building relationships with my kids, but I wasn't really good at having them build relationships with each other. So that's really the key, that we want to build communities in those environments, because they will feel like it's kind of like their family, and they will respect the people in it, and they will want to thrive in those environments. So we're hoping that we can give you some of those and, you know, key components that you can actually take back and start trying some of those, because they're really a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun, especially because you get to know about your kids and they get to know about you. And we also do them in our staff meetings. So a lot of the activities that you'll be seeing today, I highly recommend that you do some of those in your staff meetings, because you want to continue to build community with your staff, right? So Ati's going to do an awesome opening in a few minutes called I Love All My Peeps. That's a great one that you can do. And I always say all of the I love the all about me activities that we do with our own kids in the classroom. Like, hey, here's a poster. Tell me about your favorite food and how many people are in your family. We do that with our staff as well. So before we start our staff meetings, we have one person share their all about me, so we can get to know a little bit about our staff members and how many kids they have, or, you know, where they grew up in, or tell us something interesting we might not know about you. So it's really, it's something awesome. And the same with the circles. So I highly encourage that you try some of these with your staff, because they're a lot of fun. They really are a lot of fun. And we always love to learn from each other. And just like our kids, we want to learn from each other, not just from one person, right? And our kids want to learn from each other, not just from their teacher. So hopefully this will create that environment where kids can feel comfortable to even have those conversations. So Ati, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we can kind of just go through I can start sharing my screen as well.
Great. So thank you, Liz. My name is Otzi Sanchez. I'm an education consultant with Collaborative Learning Solutions, or CLS. I'm also a marriage and family therapist, and I'm credentialed in school counseling. So I've been in education actually for many years. I was doing some private practice and nonprofit mental health work as well, but my heart always comes back to the schools. So it's been a pleasure being part of CLS and working with teachers, educators, and everybody within the education system. So I'm just really glad to be here and to be with you guys, especially on this topic, because we are going to address a little bit of that mental health component that comes into coming back to school. So that's a little about me.
Awesome. And I believe if you missed it, Ati did share the link that we have on the bottom of this slide where it says handouts. So if you want to type that into your browser, you will actually get access to our folder that contains all of the materials that we're going to be sharing with you today. So you will have the presentation along with all the other goodies. And I will share that's the beauty of this session today is we can navigate you through all of these pieces because a lot of our teachers, they want some of this stuff, but when you just share it out, they become overwhelmed because it's too much that they don't do any of it because they don't even know where to start. So we can share how you can use some of these resources because they do look good, but when you're in the classroom, we want it to be easy for our teachers. So we can help you navigate through some of those and what that looks like on a regular day or a regular week for our teachers. So welcome everybody. Welcome. We are super excited that you're here. And we're going to get started on our session on Beyond Reopening Schools and Meeting the Social Emotional Needs of our kids. We did a little bit of an intro. You guys got to see who Atsi is and then myself. So coming from a teacher lens and a behavior specialist lens, I can share some of those experiences. And I think that's why a lot of what we're covering today is dear to my heart because we had a lot of awesome support staff that were developing lessons and they were never in the classroom and they were developing lessons for us. And I was like, wait a minute, like you kind of need our input on this stuff. So we did have input on our teachers because they know more than anybody, right? So I'm really excited to bring that lens as well as a teacher and as an educator as we're going through today's session. So I'm going to stop sharing because it's actually going to make it easier for this activity. And Ati is going to explain the instructions for this little activity.
Okay, so this game is called I Love My Peeps or I Love All My Peeps. And essentially, if you're doing it in person, it works kind of like a musical chairs kind of an activity where if, the facilitator will say a statement like, I love my peeps that are wearing red today. And everybody that's wearing red has to get up and switch seats. So obviously we don't have that option within this kind of a format. So we do it a little bit differently. Virtually what we'd like you to do, if you can, because we understand not everybody can have their cameras on, but we'll ask everybody to turn their cameras off. And I'm going to say a statement, and if it relates to you, then you turn your camera back on so that we can kind of see everybody that it relates to. Now, again, not everybody can have their cameras on, so if you can't, it's absolutely fine. We just ask that you use like one of those like thumbs up reactions of that bottom button there. That allows you to do that just so that we can see like, okay, yeah, that is something that you can relate to, even if you can't necessarily turn your screen on. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody to turn your screens off, which I will do as well. Okay, and the statement right now is, I like sunny days. So if that is something that applies to you, turn your screen on or do the little, there you go, some of those little emojis. There we go. Yes. That way we can see everybody and everything that it can, that everybody that's connected on it. All right. Thank you. Everybody turn your cameras back off. This next one is for Liz specifically, but hopefully others will also relate. I'm a firm believer in Taco Tuesday. Or any other day of the week. There she is. I was like, wait, Liz is taking a second to turn her camera.
I was trying to be the first one, but I didn't make it.
Not a problem. All right, thank you. Everybody turn your cameras back off. Okay. All right, let's see. Public speaking makes me nervous. If that applies to you, turn your video back on. All right, we got a few thumbs up too. Yeah. Yeah, public speaking was never my thing, but now I've kind of been forced to get a little more comfortable with it. All right, everybody turn your cameras back off. And our next one, let's do I own a pet or more than one pet. That one usually grabs a few people. There we go. Yes, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Let's do a few more and then we can move on. All right, cameras back off. The next one, I have experienced some positive changes related to virtual learning. Great, excellent. We have a few, yeah. And definitely something that I like to highlight because I think sometimes we get a little stuck talking about how challenging it is and how hard it is, and not that it isn't, but there also have come some good things out of it as well. All right, let's do a couple more. Cameras off. Okay, I tend to put the needs of others before my own. I tend to put the needs of others before my own. Yeah, usually when I do this with people in education, it's like almost the entire screen or the whole screen, right? When we're caregivers, it's part of our nature. It's something that we do often, a little too often. So let's do one more, which kind of relates to the last one. I struggle sometimes with my self-care. Yeah, which kind of does go with that last one, right? Sometimes when we're putting the needs of everybody else first, then we tend to take away a little bit from ourselves, and then we end up burning ourselves out a little bit. So thank you everybody for participating. If you're comfortable and if you'd like to, you're welcome to turn your camera back on. Again, not mandatory, but I just wanted to thank you all for participating.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That was super fun. We get to learn about each other, and they're always fun. We did this activity not too long ago, and one of the teachers said, "I want to know who has tattoos in this room." And she literally said, "I love all my peeps who have tattoos," so she could figure out. She wanted to know who was similar to her. So it was really fun and interesting. So our learning intentions is that we want to help support infusing emotional learning virtually and in person to build community and in the school environment. So yes, it can be done virtually, just like it can be done in person. And I think that's one of those positive things that I thought of when Ati said, is there anything, good that's come out of this? And it's allowed us to be more creative and innovative in ways that I probably never had tapped into. So we're excited to share how we do that virtually or in person. Also, our success criteria, we will know that we are successful when we can explain the strategies for infusing SEL and implementing them into our classrooms or in our school sites. So what is emotional learning? I feel like maybe I'm preaching to the choir. Thumbs up or hands up if you are pretty familiar with SEL, maybe you're implementing some of that already as it is. Some of you maybe are implementing some of those resources or relationship building activities and social skills. Okay, awesome. So the good thing is this is not an introduction to it, right? It's really more of like, how do we make it live in our classrooms? So we really want to help develop those healthy identities where students can manage their emotions, achieve those personal and collective goals, and really just make responsible decisions. And I've always said, I just want to help create better humans. Like that is my passion in life. I just want to create better humans that are more empathic, that can handle the challenges, that can overcome adversity. And we can do that by modeling it and incorporating it into our classrooms. And I always tell my teachers, when I remember when we first started doing some of this SEL stuff, they said, well, why do we have to do one more thing? And I said, well, it's really not one more thing. You're already doing it and you just don't know. And it's not another thing to add to your plate. It is the plate. So let's talk about how we can make it live. Because one of the things about SEL that I want to emphasize, and we want our educators to know, beyond this session, is that SEL is not really an add-on. It should be something that's embedded and it's infused, right? So I'll give you a little story. I was doing a pilot on an SEL program a couple of years ago, and I was doing my walkthroughs to see how the program was going. And I was interviewing teachers, and this is what I typically would hear. Oh, SEL is going great. I'm doing it every Tuesday at 9. And I thought, okay, so how do I get you to do SEL all day long rather than I do SEL in the mornings, right? And when you look at some of the resources that we're sharing, we don't want teachers to feel like, oh yeah, I did my SEL slide, so I did my SEL for the day. It's really about infusing it. So when we're going through some of these features, let's say one box might have 3 different activities. Maybe they can do the beginning one, to open up their day. They can do the circles to close out their day. They can do mindful movements, in between breaks, but they can also use those teachable moments, right? So if I'm talking about novels or stories, I can use the characters and describe how the characters are feeling and maybe what we can do, to make them feel better, and maybe having a circle conversation around that time. So really making it come alive. And a lot of that starts with the relationship building activities as well. So as we go throughout today, we really want to go past the, why do SEL in the morning? That's not what we want to, the message that we really want to share out. So Ati's going to do a little share out with all of us to kind of see where you're at and what you're hoping to get out of today, because we are superstars in the sense that we will cater this training to whatever it is that you need. So whatever you need, we're going to make sure that we blow it up for you today so you can actually have what you came to get today. So Ati, you want to do the share out for us?
Yeah, thank you. So first we're going to start with is just kind of that, where are we right now kind of a question. What are your concerns related to students' return to school? And if I'm not mistaken, you all have maybe a few students that have come back already, maybe not 100%. But I know there's already kind of been a little bit of that movement with students back on campuses. So what have been your concerns related to students' return to school? And you can either unmute and share with us. You can put your thoughts in the chat, whatever is more comfortable for you. Quiet group today. So let me just give you some idea, because we have talked to a number of educators in this area, and we've heard some feedback as far as some of the health concerns. Obviously, with COVID still out there, some people do have some real concerns related to, what's going to happen if I get it? What if the students are getting it? What if the staff are getting it? Are they going to spread it? There's some of that. There's some concern around what it's just going to be like having students back. We're trying to teach in kind of a hybrid model with some students in the room and then more on the laptop. So I've heard a little bit of that as well. But what other concerns do you all have? Okay, great. Thank you. In the chat, we have students will present with some trauma. Absolutely. Thank you for calling that out, Jeannie. There are definitely some students that might come back from trauma with some trauma either related to COVID or maybe just related to some of the situations in their homes related to how COVID has impacted their families, their households, the world. There's definitely a trauma component there. And then also Michelle called out students feeling emotionally and physically in school. There's definitely going to be some emotions that are going to be running a little rampant, and some students might feel a little more comfortable and some might not. So they might be in different places, which is a little harder to navigate sometimes as well. Students whose families don't want them to return might feel left out. Yeah, there is a really big social component that's going on here. Students have not been able to socialize the way that they would, quote unquote, normally, because they can't see each other necessarily, or if they can't see each other, maybe they have to engage with each other, 6 feet apart, or definitely differently than they used to. They're probably not out there running around playing tag at this point. So there are definitely some social implications that are coming along with coming back. And just that general feeling of safety, whether physically or emotionally, right? Because there's beyond just the physical safety concerns, there's also some of that emotional safety, especially for the kids that might have some trauma around what's happened. They might not feel comfortable just being, in a room with other students. Catherine has highlighted bullying. Yes, yeah, and there's already a school shooting. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, again, mental health is definitely going to come into play here, right? students feel uncomfortable or unsafe. So they do whatever is going to allow them to feel a little bit more safe. And sometimes that is bullying, because then I'm the one in control if I'm the one that's being the bully. Or if there's, when there has been a school shooting, or we've heard a little bit about suicides on campuses, or not necessarily on campuses, but with some of the students that are a part of that campus. Again, that tends to raise our flags and our anxiety goes up. And then whenever that anxiety is there, we're always going to react in different ways in order to try to cope with what's going on. So there are definitely some real concerns that are out there. Let's see, Julie highlighted a lack of length of time being able to do academic work. Yeah, absolutely. We tend to highlight quite a bit needing to do more of the social emotional piece, right? We do have to be able to support our students that are coming back. But then what about that expectation as far as the academic work that they're supposed to have done as well? So how do we do it in a way where we're addressing their physical and emotional needs, but also giving them the education that they need and deserve? So there is definitely this dance between, okay, let me do a little bit of support, but then let me also get to some of your academics. And the expectation and the pressure on teachers and educators is often very high. And sometimes it's a little unrealistic, or maybe a lot unrealistic, depending on where you're at. But we do want to, like Liz mentioned, we're going to offer just a wealth of resources for everybody. So please take advantage of all of those, because it will offer you just things that are ready to go, hit the ground running. So you don't have to do the extra legwork in order to incorporate some of that stuff. And it does give you that extra time to really focus on the academic part that you want to do. So moving into the second question, what would you like to gain from today's session? Is there anything in particular that you're like, oh, I definitely want to utilize this time for this? And again, you can just call it out or throw it in the chat, whatever is more comfortable for you. And while you're thinking, I will get to this one other comment from Mark regarding the concern. I am more concerned about the backslide in social and emotional progress than I am about the academic gap. Yeah. Our adults, the models, and safe kid behavior modifiers need to support to know how to proceed with unique and exacerbated age-appropriate misbehavior. Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on there, right? And we have actually encouraged lots of schools, especially, administrators, saying, you know what, maybe just not necessarily, let the academics slide, because we can't do that either, but allow that time just for students to show a little bit of what they're feeling, maybe share a little bit about what happened for them. As a therapist, some of my concern has been related to, students kind of come back, they're excited to come back after not having been with other kids for a year. But then that excitement wears off, and then the trauma starts to kind of surface. So then we see more of those behaviors. We might see more of the acting out, more of the aggression, more of the isolation that we didn't necessarily see initially. So what we want to do is be preventative about that as much as possible, which really is incorporating some of those SEL activities and skills and just opportunities for students to express what's going on for them. Let's see, Julie highlighted some desire for strategies to mitigate some of the concerns discussed. Excellent, we're definitely going down that road. And then helping students build relationships with each other. Absolutely, connection is going to be huge. So we'll definitely be talking about that as well. Strategies to help students learn to recognize their needs and advocate for support. Yeah. And I'm also going to add to this one as well. I'm going to add to staff to that too, to advocate for support when we need it. So just going back to that self-care question that we did, and I love my peeps, we need some of that support as well. We need to advocate for that need sometimes as well. And sometimes modeling for our students is what's most effective, is showing them, you know what, I'm not 100%. I need to ask for help too sometimes. And then also ideas or routines we can share with staff that might help them establish new practices they can test drive now and begin to incorporate in the years ahead. This makes me so excited because everything that you guys are asking for, we're definitely giving you today. So without hesitation, let's move forward. So we did mention a little bit, I talked a little bit about the mental health signs. This is just a little bit, sorry, our screens are moving on their own. Not a problem. So while that's loading, we'll talk a little bit about the mental health. There it is. Some of the impact of COVID-19. This might be things that you've already seen or experienced even yourself in your own life. A lot of people have lost somebody or saw somebody get sick, or even beyond that, outside of the illness, there's been so many limitations. We can't go into certain places anymore. If we do, we have to be wearing a mask. We try to stay away from everybody. There's hand sanitizer all over the place. There's been a lot of different changes that have impacted our mental health, especially the isolation part. People that don't necessarily have others that they can lean on, or, you know, people that as humans, we're social creatures. And if we're don't have as much of that interaction, it's definitely going to impact us. And it's the same for our students. At least with us, you know, as adults, we can drive ourselves out somewhere just to, you know, be around others. For a child whose parents are working, who doesn't have any siblings or something like that, some of those other mental health issues might come into play. So we have seen some increase in depression. We've seen some increase in anxiety. These are things that we might see as we have students start to come back. I can guarantee you it's already going on. We just don't necessarily see it because we don't have the same access to our students as we did before. PTSD and trauma, which we talked about a little bit already. And then some of that social anxiety or phobias. I had a friend who was telling me that she was walking, I believe it was into a Target or something like that. She was walking from her car to the Target. She realized she forgot her mask. So she started to head back to her car. And as she was headed back to her car, there was this little boy that was with his mom, pointed at her like this, and just had this incredible just fear response that was very, very just, you know, just organic, just kind of happened without, it was just like a non-controlled reaction. That was just his organic reaction. And of course, fortunately, that's not necessarily the response that we're getting from all of our students, but there might be some that are experiencing a little bit of that fear or phobia around being around others, about getting sick. That, you know, are maybe more used to being isolated now and are having a little more trouble socializing. So these are all just things that we want to keep in mind. So these are some of the behaviors that we might see with these students that are struggling. And these behaviors are not necessarily going to be unfamiliar to things that you've seen before, but we want to just keep an open mind as far as where are these behaviors coming from. Sometimes we can be quick to just react to a student's disrespect or defiance or something like that. But we want to keep in mind that it might be a sign of something more. It might be trauma. It might be mental health. We might see some fear, some isolation, some students that don't really want to participate or that are tending to stray away from others. We might see some of that yelling, aggression, those outbursts. There's a lot of different possibilities of what mental health looks like for our students in ways that we might not necessarily react as adults, but that's how they communicate. So if something's not right, sometimes we say at CLS is we want to be curious, not furious. We don't want to just have that snap judgment and react. We really want to explore it with the student a little bit and see where it is that they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to add to that. I know in the box, in the chat box, some of you were saying about the relationships, right? And when we talk about relationships, we also want to keep in mind, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, we call it the EMR approach. So the EMR approach stands for establishing, maintaining, and restoring relationships. So that's going to be key to a lot of our educators in the classroom, because some of them are really good about doing return to school, get to know you activities, and I build relationships, but how do you keep them for 180 days? How do you maintain those relationships? And better yet, how do you restore that relationship when it's been broken? That's a big one. So I'm going to share a resource with all of you, and I will drop this in the box as well. So I'm going to, I paused my screen so I can talk about this. So when we talk about EMR, like I mentioned, the E is for establish, the M is for maintain, and the R is for restore. So we do need to give our educators something that they can do on their own, not a form that they have to turn into their administrator. It's not that kind of form. It's a form that they can use for themselves when it comes to building relationships with kids. So I need to have strategies for establishing relationships with my kids, and I need to have strategies when I want to maintain them and then when I want to restore them. So are you guys able to see my screen that has the EMR on there? Okay, perfect. So what I have here, the way you use this form, if you want to use it for yourself or if you want to share it with staff, depending on your role that you're in, the first phase, I provided a couple of strategies. You don't have to use my strategies. And I always tell teachers, maybe you don't use these, you have your own, and that's okay. So on the section where it says what works for me, they're going to put, this is what works for me when I build relationships. So how do you build relationships with a new student or when they come to class for the first time? And they will drop all of those on there. A lot of them already have ways to do that, so they can continue, doing that. For maintain, same thing. They're going to give me ways that they can maintain relationships with their kids. So they can use some of the strategies that I have in the bank there, or they can create their own. And then the same goes for restore. Now, the restore piece is a little bit more complicated and challenging for some of our staff, because some of them might not be, they struggle. I know when I was a school site administrator, this was a hard one. If a student did something wrong, it was like, I remember this one teacher who once called and she said, I just sent, little Johnny to your office. Well, what do you want me to do with him? And she said, I don't know. I want him to bleed. Like, she was just so mad. Like, I want to see blood. Like, I am so mad that he did this behavior. And the kid goes back and the teacher doesn't talk to him. And then she sends him back. And I mean, it was just like we were playing this game, right? And it reminded me of myself when I was a teacher. And the first time that I had a student actually make a threat against me. And he's gone for like 2 days. And he comes back. And it was the most awkward moment in my teaching career, because he came back after threatening to shoot me and my family, right? So he's suspended. He comes back and I'm angry and I am mad. And I did not talk to him. And he did not talk to me. And then I realized after 3 days, like, he's going to be in your class for 180 days, Liz. Mind you, I was 23 years old. I was a first year teacher. I had no idea, but I realized I didn't have the skill set or the experience to even, I didn't know the words to even say to my student, right? So restoring, when I thought back and I thought, why am I struggling with the restoring piece? And I realized I came from a very strong Hispanic family where if something was broken, you didn't fix it. So if I had two aunts, I'll give you an example. I had two aunts. I'll call them Mary and Lucy. And they got into it in one of our, there was a funeral in the family, and they got into it. They got into an argument. And ever since then, they never talked to each other ever again. So every time we had an event, my Aunt Lucy would say, is Mary going to be there? Because if she is, I'm not coming. And that's how I was raised. You get mad at each other, you don't talk, you ignore each other. And if someone's there, you don't show up. So I grew up believing that. So there was never a, you know what, your aunt and I don't talk. So I'm going to go to her house and we're going to have a conversation because we need to fix this. Nobody fixed anything. Like, that was it. So I realized that's why I struggled with restoring, because we just didn't restore relationships. So I had to create my own strategies of how am I going to restore relationships with my kids. So there is a bank of strategies on there as well. And I'll list my strategies, or your teachers can create their own. But they do need something. And eventually the way you use this form, if you can see kind of on the bottom, is if I am maybe 1 week into school or 3 weeks or 3 months, and I am struggling with a group of kids, because we all know we're going to struggle with 1 or 3% of our kids, right? Because tier 1 is just not working for them. So I will write the list of those kids on the left-hand side where it says student, and I'm going to put on there, okay, so Otzi, I'm struggling with that girl. So I'm going to say, where am I with Otzi? Have I built the relationship? Maybe she started school late and she missed all of the All About Me activities, and I've never really built a relationship with her. So I am going to try these strategies to get to know Otzi, because I don't even know who she is. Or maybe I did build a relationship, but I wasn't able to maintain it. So I'm going to go to my box of maintaining relationships, and I'm going to choose a strategy. I'm going to check off where I am with her. And maybe I'm going to dedicate 2 minutes a day for 10 days. That's one of my favorite ones. Whenever I would get a new kid, I called it the 2 to 10 rule. 2 minutes a day for 10 days. I'm going to get to know you, kid, and we're going to be besties. So I really dedicated that time. The R is for restore. So maybe Otzi did something, and ever since she got in trouble or I called her mom, it hasn't been the same. So maybe there's something that we need to do to restore that relationship. Maybe I can do more maintain. I don't have to do a restore one. Maybe it's more maintaining the relationship so she knows that I love her and I see her and I'm glad she's in my classroom, but does she actually feel that? Because kids can feel when somebody likes them like a shark smelling blood in the water. They know when it's fake and they know when it's not, right? And if they feel it and they believe it, they're going to do anything for you, just absolutely anything. So that is the EMR approach. So kind of just keep that in mind when you're talking about relationships and building those with your kids. We really want to build them, but we also want to maintain them, and then we want to restore them when something happens. Any questions so far?
Sorry, no, I was just wondering if you put that link in the chat, because I don't know if
put that in the chat. That way you have it before I even drop it into our folder. How about that? Because you are just so special that you get it in the chat.
Because I don't know if I know where that one is, to be honest.
It's one of those things like, oh, I'm going to create this because it's good, and then I'll share it, and then even my own staff is like, I've never seen that. I'm like, oh, I just created it last night, like at 2 a.m. when I was drinking wine. Everything's better with wine, right?
We'll have to add that to the Taco Tuesday, your glass of wine.
Yeah, tacos and wine. I mean, I work better. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't work better when I'm intoxicated, but it helps when I'm at home.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me type that into the chat box. There we go. So you have the EMR form on there now.
Okay. Excellent.
And I want to pause there because we don't want to be the only ones to talk in this session. If anybody has any questions, any comments, concerns, something you're still wondering about, feel free to use the chat box or just unmute yourself and just have that dialogue with us, including with the share out, because we want to make sure, again, that we're catering this to your needs. So is there anything that you have any questions for regarding the content that we just shared? Any thoughts, anything that you're wondering about, or maybe like, hey, yeah, this is great, let's keep going. And then we can maybe blend that with the share out as well.
We must be doing a really great job, Liz.
I'll try to believe that one, right? I'm overrated, but I'll believe it.
Frame. We got thumbs up from Jeannie, so.
So we'll do a couple of quick share outs as well. So again, same as the previous share out. If you want to just share out, unmute yourself or use the chat box. And Otzi, she's going to lead us into this one.
Yes. So first of all, why is it important to place a strong focus on SEL? What are your thoughts on that one? Okay, Donna mentioned because kids are both social and emotional beings. Absolutely. Yeah, and we all are, right? So if we're only handling one part of that, let's say we're only just focused on the academic piece, what ends up happening is that we're giving information, but the students aren't necessarily receiving it if, let's say, they have a social or emotional need that isn't being addressed. If I don't feel connected in my classroom, if I feel like I have a bully, the teacher's not supporting me, I'm probably not going to be learning anything because my mind is on what's going to happen with that bully. I'm not absorbing any of that information. The goal really is to address the whole child, right? The more that we are aware and offering support for our students in all of the ways that they need it, the more they're going to be able to grasp that academic education piece, right? We really need to be able to address all of that in order to be able to give them the best education that we can. Let's see, there's more comments in the chat. Students do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thank you, Jeannie. Yes, I love that quote so much. Liz mentioned students that have that connection, that feel that rapport with you, are going to do anything with you and for you, right? And that really goes back down to the relationship. The more that we have that relationship, the more we have that rapport, the more they're going to try to give us, the more they're going to work with us, the more they'll collaborate with us, the more they'll feel like they can ask for help and advocate for themselves when they need it, right? So we definitely have to keep an eye on that. I think we need social emotional well-being in order to engage in learning. Absolutely, right? That's exactly what we were just mentioning. Catherine says, it's the old saying, they don't care what you know unless you know that they care. Yes, infused, absolutely. Life for so many students is tough. They needed a trusted adult to grow. Yes, thank you. Even just one adult, right? That's what the research shows, is they just need one trusted adult on campus. And sometimes that adult is you. I've heard from people that sometimes when kids have that rougher childhood or situation at home, they come to school for their reprieve. That's their safe place. So if you have a student who's coming there and feeling like, okay, this is where I get to take that deep breath, then you're making a huge difference even beyond teaching, let's say, something academic, which I don't want to minimize at all. But sometimes it's that relationship. And usually we all have that one teacher, right? At least one that we're like, oh yeah, I remember this teacher from this grade for this reason, right? That's what we remember. And I mean, I could tell you right now, I do not remember most of calculus, but I do remember the teachers that I was the closest to in high school. So it really goes back down to that relationship. Let's see, Mark says, being a healthy person and lifelong learner can only happen with self-awareness, social skills, and appreciation for differences. Yes, well said, absolutely. So the more that we have that SEL incorporated into our day, the more we're going to be able to really reach our students. Which brings us to question number 2. Can SEL be infused throughout the day, or does it need to stand alone? Which Liz talked about a little bit earlier, which, are we doing that SEL lesson on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock, or is it something that we're doing throughout? So Michelle says infused. Yes, absolutely. And I think that is the answer we're going to stick with, is just keep it infused. Let's see, Julie says, I really appreciate the specific practice to establish, maintain, and restore the EMR positive relationships with students and the focus on behavior-specific praise. I think it's critical to ensure that this praise is really varied and individually specific. One is reinforcing to one individual, might not to others. Yeah, yeah, thank you, absolutely. Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, just the same conversation we've been having. We all know that our kids they need that love, that belonging, they need that safety in order to actually thrive in those environments. And the same thing works for adults as well, right? If we feel like we are loved and we're belonged and people value what we do, then we're more likely to actually thrive in our environments, even just in our roles as educators. So with our students, we want to, I'm not going to go deep into this pyramid because I'm pretty sure as educators, you've all seen it before. But how do we tap into that? We show this pyramid, we're like, yes, go do more love and belonging and do SEL, but we don't give you the resources for it. And that's one of the goodies that we're going to be sharing with you today, is because I know from even just training SEL for such a long time, it wasn't, the teachers didn't just want to know the what and the why. They wanted to do some of this stuff, but what I realized with a lot of our teachers, most of them, is they don't have the time to create all of this SEL stuff unless they infuse it throughout the day, which they can. So in our district, we have 1,600 teachers. And I said, you know what, I'm going to develop SEL lessons. And I don't mean lessons like a curriculum that, like the ones you purchase. It was based on what our teacher said. Hey, I want a mindfulness, I want circles, I want this, and I want gratitude. And we said, okay, so mindful Mondays, thoughtful Tuesdays, gratitude Wednesdays, what else do you guys want? And they said every day should be sectioned out. And then we want activities, and they need to be ready to go, Liz. They need to be ready to go, no prep needed, or else I'm not going to do them. And I said, okay. So we developed a lot of those resources where our teachers can just grab and go, and they don't have to do anything. So we're going to share two of those different ones that you can actually use. One is called the morning meetings, and then one is called the SEL lessons. So we also have this handout right here. On the one on the left, if you click on it, it actually takes you directly to that one. So this was developed for some teachers who didn't know what does it look like before, during, and after my lesson. So if you're doing this virtually and you don't know what SEL might look like, this resource will take you to what you can do before your lesson starts, when you're in the lesson, and then when you're closing it. So for example, maybe I do a check-in. So we have emotional thermometers. We even have like on a scale of a cat, and there's 5 different cat faces, and you pick the number that you feel like. So it's better than on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel today? I've been doing circles for a very long time, and I know that my students get tired of telling me every day, today I feel like a 5 because, so we have to change it up. It can't just be a check-in like that. It could be a cat, it could be the emotional thermometer, or maybe just talking about it. But we change it up. So our circles are not every Monday. I mean, not every day is a check-in, maybe. And I'm saying that because some of our teachers did check-ins every day and the kids were like overwhelmed with it. So don't do your check-ins every day. You could do them throughout the day. You can do like Monday check-in. That's why we have those SEL lessons, because it was too much to have them check in every single day. During the lesson, we have some ways that they can infuse it with novels or with stories or with characters, like I was mentioning before. We also have a way to closing your lesson, maybe with an aha, gratitude, goal setting. We also developed some of those features for our parents as well, because we know a lot of our parents were reaching out saying, hey, I want to help my kid. We found that our behavior specialists were supporting parents more than they were supporting kids, because they were like, I don't know what to do. I'm the teacher, I'm the principal, I'm the counselor, I'm the social worker, and I'm overwhelmed and I need help. So we developed something for parents as well on what they can do to help their kids before a lesson starts, during a lesson, and after, because there was not a lot of routines and there was not a lot of procedures, and there was a lot of stuff that shouldn't have been happening, like stop feeding your kid during virtual learning, stop letting the chickens, in the house when they're trying to learn. And and it's very difficult because some of our kids would have their cameras off because they literally would have their baby siblings that they're babysitting because their parents are at work and they don't have anybody to watch the other siblings. So there was, so much going on, and we knew our parents needed support as well. So we did develop it for the teacher, and we developed it for the parents, and you're more than welcome to make a copy, make it your own, infuse it with some of your stuff, and and take what you need. Any questions before we move into gratitude? Because we do have gratitude resources. We're not going to tell you why gratitude is awesome. We're going to tell you how you can implement it and give you some journals that we have developed. So any questions so far before we move on? Because I want to make sure that I answer any questions that anybody might have. Comments, concerns? I feel like you're just eating it up. Like somebody said, yes, I'm listening and I'm learning, keep going. So we will do that. But I just want to make sure, if anybody had any questions. So gratitude, great way to build community and to have students focus on the good things that are happening in their life, not just the negative. So we all know that our thoughts create emotions, and those emotions create behaviors, right? So there's no way that I can control the environment my kids live in. If they come to school and they are frustrated because they didn't have food that day, or they got into it with their parent, I can't control that. But when they come to me, I can change that thought, that changes the emotion, and then it changes their behavior in the classroom. So gratitude is one of those awesome ways that students can focus on good things happening in their life rather than all the bad that's happening. And you actually have to focus on things that are happening in your life throughout the day. So if you know you have to write about it, you're purposely looking for good things throughout your day because you have to write about it. So gratitude is a great way to do that. We do have journals. And I want to say we started them back in the fall, so you can change the dates if you want to, but we do have several gratitude journals that you can choose from, and they are by grade level. So if you're not TK, I think for TK, we actually had circle questions where we had kids talk because they weren't really writing during that time, but they were giving gratitude prompts rather than gratitude journal writing prompts. So it was more verbal, but we do have it for I want to say it's from 2nd all the way to 8th grade, but the 8th grade ones, you can use them for high school. They do work for high school. The reason it says 8th grade is because we don't have 8th grade. We're actually K-8 school district. So all of 43 of our schools are only K-8, and then our high school, it's just crazy how it works out. There is one high school district and they have all the high schools. Nobody shares them. It's the craziest thing. But that's the way, that's the umbrella that we work under here in amazing Kern County. So we do have those gratitude journals, and I encourage you to use those. Now, if your teachers feel overwhelmed and they're like, these lessons you're sharing, they're awesome, but I don't even know where to start. Start with gratitude. Just do gratitude and do 10 days with your kids, and then infuse maybe one of those lessons that we provide for you. But it can be as easy, as just doing your gratitude journaling. If they're doing journals, not journals, but even share outs on tell me something you're grateful for. One of the big things with circles is you have to be a part of it. So you want to be able to answer those questions yourself. If you're asking kids, what is your favorite farm animal? Or if you could own any animal in the world, what would you own? I have to share my response too, because they want to learn about me. I need to level out that playing field to show them like, hey, I am just like you and I'm human. And I also get frustrated. I just don't respond the way you do, but I have different ways of doing that. So there's also some activities in the folder that we shared for get to know you activities. So question for all of you, do you have kids back in person already, or are most of them virtual? I know sometimes some districts have like special ed, foster youth. Do you have kids already in person other than those subgroups coming in? I'm just curious so I can kind of maneuver as I'm going through the presentation. So thumbs up if your kids are back on campus, even if they're not just special ed or youth or
In the
foster youth.
chat, we have both that work. They're hybrid.
You have both. Okay.
Hybrid with 2 days a week. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Got it. At any point, do you have hybrid and in person at the same time? A teacher, would she be, because our district is funky that way, but I might be having kids in class and I have my virtual kiddos at the exact same time when my in-person are doing asynchronous learning. Do you guys have that as well? Okay.
Catherine is saying yes. So we're going to go with that. Yes.
Okay. So the reason why I'm saying that is because starting in April or May, if you're using our SEL lessons, Wednesdays are the days where we have both together. I have my in-person asynchronous and then I have my virtual, but we wanted them to build relationships with each other, even though some are in person and some are virtual. So we do have some Jamboards that we created where both kids, whether you're in person or you're virtual, you're both in the same Jamboard and you're doing the activities together. So that is designated on Wednesdays if you wanted to do that. So thank you for giving me that update. I see you have K8 and K6 are back. Hybrid and 7 and 8 will return on Monday. Okay, exciting. So those of you who had your kids come back to school, so I was at one of our elementary schools and I'm at the gate greeting the TKers and the kindergartners coming in, and I need to check off the list to make sure that they are on the list, because if you're not, like, we can only have 15 kids per classroom, right? And I am approaching these kindergartners and even sixth graders, and they forgot their name and they are whispering, and I realize they are afraid to talk. They're afraid to like socialize. It's like they were afraid that they were going to get in trouble for something. And being a behavior specialist, I'm ready for behaviors, and we really didn't encounter anything other than they are like socially withdrawn, and there was very high anxiety and the fear, and just something as small as what is your name, and they're like sounding out their name. I'm like, does it start with a V? And it was funny because the VP at that school site used to be at a middle school, so it's his first day as a VP at an elementary, and here's a kindergartner, and the VP looks at me and he's like, what's their name? How do you not know your name? And I was like, give them some grace. It's their first day back, and even our sixth graders, they were struggling with that. So there are a lot of activities that you can use with your teachers here, including our morning meetings. So this is one of my favorite ones. Morning meetings so here is a slide to show you what that looks like. So I actually changed the morning meeting starting in the month of May. So these morning meeting slides, if you click on it, it takes you to a slide deck for every month of the year. I update them on the 15th of the month for the following month. So these will continue to go until the end of the 2022 school year. So if you keep this original one and you make it your own, yay, but keep the original so you can see the updates that go onto it. We also have morning meeting in Spanish. So if you need those, we have those as well. So morning meetings is pretty much what the title says. How do I greet my kids in the morning? We're going to greet each other with some type of greeting. We're going to have a quote of the day. We're going to have a poll of the day. Then we're going to have a video that helps you think about it. So the think about it is pretty much your SEL video. And then the share out is your circle prompt. So some of our teachers do these slides all at once, or they do it throughout the day. So they might start morning meetings, but because they're only back for such a short time, you don't have kids for more than, like in our classroom, they're like 2 hours. We don't have them all day. So they maybe start the greeting, or they do the poll of the day. And they get to know each other, because kids want to know things that they have in common. Like, oh, you like ice cream too? Wow. Like everything I say I like, you like it too. So they get to know about each other with the polls, or even just the circle questions. So the circle questions, if you're using our SEL lessons that are in the next one of the next slides, we actually have jam boards. So the kids can actually go into the jam board and communicate that way, or they can communicate via the chat box, or they can communicate just sharing out. Whatever the teacher wants, we leave it up to them. But we pretty much developed all of the circles and, the things like that. So if you're going to the lessons, which I'm going to share in a little bit, those are more catered to. Mondays are mindfulness. Wednesdays are gratitude. Thursdays are coping with stress. And then Fridays are our fun Fridays. So there is, you have a variety, and you have choices and options there. So the SEL lessons, I'm going to go into those. So our students absolutely love the Caption It. The Caption It, we have funny pictures, and they're kind of creating a meme. Like, what is this dog with hair everywhere? What does this mean to you? And they'll say funny things. Like, I think the picture we had the other day, it was like two dogs, and one of them was looking at him like, what's wrong with you? And the kids were saying, he's probably like, ooh, you have COVID, and they were just being funny with all of the memes. So the kids have to caption what they think these images are. And again, they're funny, and kids want to laugh, and they want to hear from each other. They don't just want to hear from the teacher. They want to hear from each other. So when you do your classroom circles, they love it because they learn from each other, and it's fun. The opening circle, it maybe that is your morning meeting. So remember, you have the morning meetings and you have the SEL lessons. So we have circles, but all of the circles have jam boards where the teachers can actually do them with their classrooms. You just make a copy, and all of your kids jump into it. So you can even do it when you have your asynchronous and your in-person and your virtual. You can do it all at the same time. You have the Caption It, and then we have different topics for different days of the week. So if you want to do mindfulness, we have yoga and mindful movements on Mondays. Tuesdays, we have an SEL program. So you can use, if you don't have that program, you can skip it, or you can replace it with something else. Wednesdays, we do have like gratitude, and then we have coping with stress. So we found 15 areas that kids were lacking when it came to coping with stress, which was withdrawn, depression, negative thoughts. So we developed lessons around all of the areas that kids were stressing out about, and that is called our Kid Cope our Kid Cope lessons, which you will find in our folder. So in the folder, there is two different folders. There's one that says Beyond Reopening Schools, and one that says the implications of mental health. Both of those folders have all of these resources. So if you jump between both of those, you will find all of those resources in there. So I want to pause for a second, because I think that was a mouthful, and I want to know, do you have any questions or anything related to the lessons, how to use them, recommendations, or just feedback in general? So we're open to any of that. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute or use the chat box, and we can have that dialogue with all of you.
And while you're thinking about all these questions, I just wanted to let you know that I was putting the links for everything in as Liz was talking. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many different links. There are a lot of different links, but everything was in that initial folder. You just have to kind of dig through, and we can do that in just a moment. But I just wanted to let you know that all the links that I was putting in are not separate from that folder. Everything is in that folder. I was just giving you the direct link to it.
And Otzi, you read my mind. I think we should navigate through the folder so they can see what's in there, rather than, hey, go in there, there's cool stuff in there. So if you want to share your screen, because I think your internet is way better than mine, and then we can just navigate through what's in each one of those folders so you can see how you can actually use it.
Absolutely. So first I'm going to put in though the survey link. So it only takes like a quick, couple minutes. If you guys could just go in really quickly, throw in your little, just click on whatever you wanted to answer in there. And in the meantime, I will get that folder up and share it for you. So we'll give you a couple.
It won't take very long, so you can actually do it at the same time that we're going over the folder, because we really want to hear your feedback. And we thought, let's throw the survey link while we're doing it, and give them some time to do it. So if you don't mind clicking on the chat box where it says survey, and completing that survey while we're going through the folder, that would be awesome. Okay, so we have the SEL lessons that I just shared with you. It's where it says new SEL lessons part 2.
Right.
You don't have to go into that one because I think I just shared that one. The morning meeting slides. So what I'm going to do is, I had so many resources for teachers that they said there's so much. So I'm actually trying to morph the SEL lessons with the morning meetings. So Otzi, if you don't mind going into the morning meetings and going into slide 161.
Sure thing. In the meantime, just it looks like folks are getting a prompt that says they need permission. Nico, can
For
you
the
take care
survey.
of that for the survey?
Thank you
We'll
for
work on that while we're talking about the morning meetings.
And then I have another awesome resource that we're going to be sharing with all of you, which is also one of my favorites. I always say I feel like Oprah and my favorite things, and I want to give you all my favorite things today. So that's what we're doing today. We're giving you all of our favorite things. I think on slide 2 or 3, Otzi, it should give you, slide 3. Yes, right there. If you click on April, it'll take you closer towards the end, because I know 161 slides is a lot. That's a lot of hours that we have put into these slides just to think that we are in slide 161. But if you click on that one, slide 141, and then just scroll down through 161, I wanted to show them the changes that I'm doing. So when school starts, the goal is that we're only going to have the morning meetings, but they're going to be part of the SEL lessons altogether. So if you notice, we do have a morning check-in where they have to tell us what animal or which number they feel like. So we're trying to make it more funny. We do have the poll of the day. So we basically took our teachers' favorite things and we put them into the slide. They said, we want the polls. You can get rid of the quote of the day, but we want the polls, we want the caption it, and we want some check-ins. So we morphed it based on what our teachers said that they wanted. So you do have your captioned images, we have the poll of the day, and then the lesson's gonna be on there. Now, if you remember on the SEL lessons, we have Mondays are mindfulness and Tuesdays, and then Wednesday gratitude. That's all going to be in the think about it section. So it's not just going to be a random video like we have in our morning meetings. It's going to be strategic for every day of the week. So I just wanted to share that before I forgot. So if we want to exit out of that one, Otzi, we can go into my other favorite thing, which is, I think it was in the folder that you were just on.
Which one? I've got everything.
Our folder that has everything. I know we have so much. Look at that. Yeah, back into the virtual classroom management. If you want to click on that one down,
Sorry.
It's okay.
No.
So much. Go back to the folder beyond reopenings. It's the last form. That one. So we realized that our teachers were struggling, whether it was virtual or in person, when it came to classroom management. So we developed these virtual classroom management supports for either behavior or for the classroom. Now, in doing research and doing trainings in classroom management for so many years, we picked 8 effective features for an effective tier 1 classroom. And that's building relationships, procedures and routines, the normal stuff. But what we did is we have look for is on what this looks like in the classroom. And we also have virtual resources. So if you are struggling, or a teacher that's struggling on the feature on building relationships or procedures and routines, all of the resources are on the right-hand side. So for example, if I say I'm struggling with breakout rooms, my kids are exchanging gamer tags instead of having conversations, there is Zoom expectations on there. There is Zoom roles, so kids know exactly what they need to do, because if you're just throwing them in a room, that's exactly what was happening. They were exchanging gamer tags and they weren't having conversations. If you want a virtual, schedule or routine, we have samples of that, all created by our amazing teachers. So everything from expectations, from just even videos of our own teachers where it's highlighted in orange. I told my teachers, I want you to give me a video of 40 minutes or less on how to do this right here. So we do have videos of our teachers kind of guiding through that. And then if you go a little bit down more, Otzi, there is tier 2 intervention. So if you have kids who are like, one of the biggest topics was how my kids won't turn their cameras on. We have resources on that and how to motivate kids to have their cameras on. Responding to trauma, behavior seeking, attention seeking behaviors. All of the resources are there. So I did want to make sure that I shared all of that with you. And there's also some resources for parents. So feel free to navigate through all of those resources because it is available for you. So if we go back into the folder, let me see if we kind of went through all of those. I think we did. If you want to go back to the Equity Institute SEL Table Talk folder, Otzi, and we can go into, yes, that one right there, into the implications of a pandemic. And let's see if there's something in there that we haven't shared with them yet. Oh, the coping with stress. So if you want to click on that one, this is the one that I mentioned that we took the features or what we felt our kids were struggling with. And this was actually based out of a screener. We screened our kids in our 43 school sites. We have 36,000 kids. So if you go to slide 2, Otzi, these were the topics that our kids were struggling with the most: distraction, social withdrawal, positive emotional regulation, and resignation. I mean, just the emotions that they were going through. So if you click on any of these sections, it'll give you 3 lessons per area. So if you feel like your kids are struggling in some of these areas, you can always use those lessons. Again, on Thursdays, our Thoughtful Thursdays, we're actually pulling from here. So if you don't want to add and you want to keep doing the SEL lessons, you don't have to use these here because we're already recycling them over there. But maybe you feel like the need is somewhere else, so you can always pull from here as well. If you're interested in doing the screener that we did, it's called Kid Cope and it's completely free. So if you email me, I believe our contact is in here at I think one of the very last slides. I can share with you how we did it. We literally did a Google survey. It's only 15 questions. And I surveyed my kids and I said, hey, answer these questions. And then based on their responses, it gives you a nice, pretty graph on Google. And it says, hey, here's the response rate for all of your kids. And we took the highest response rates and then we developed lessons around them. So if you were interested in knowing what are my kids struggling with, here you go. But I can also tell you, and not that our kids are kids, but overall I took district trends. And I want to say the top 3 trends, it didn't matter where I did it. It was always going to be social withdrawal. It was wishful thinking and resignation. A lot of our kids were just giving up. So those were the top 3. And I thought, I could have done 15 schools instead of 43 and figured that one out because it was literally the same data no matter where I went. But it was also very interesting to do a universal survey screener and see how some kids in different demographic areas are struggling with something completely different than someone in a different demographic area. So that was really important for me to see, because then I knew if you live in this zip code, they're struggling with this, but if you're struggling with this one, then it's here. So it was definitely interesting to see all of that. Somebody's asking on the chat box, where is the equity folder? Oh, the one that we're just sharing. That is actually the folder that we shared. Good question. So the folder that we shared, I think took them to, let's do this. Otzi, can you move the implications of a pandemic folder into the Beyond Reopening Schools? Because if they have that, yeah, that's the folder they have. So now they have everything that's in there. There you go. Thank you for mentioning that. So if you go into your Beyond Reopening Schools, now you will have the folder that I just went through, which is the implications of a pandemic. So you have both. So everything we just went through, it's all there. It's all in your fingertips. So you have it available to you. So any questions? I know that was a lot of stuff, but like I mentioned, we wanted to give you the good stuff, right? Not just talk about SEL is important, go be SEL-ish, right? And like, no, let's try this out. What does it look like in the classroom? What does that look like? So we have additional resources on that BCSD SEL website. Excuse me, that is a website for my district. And as if I didn't have anything to do with my life, with a 5-month-old.
All of your free time, Liz, between creating all of this stuff.
The day I came home after having my baby, my daughter says, I have COVID and my dog had puppies. And I developed this website at the same time that I had like 5 puppies and a newborn and my daughter has COVID. I'm like, you know what? My kids need resources. So everything I shared with you is on here. So there is, if your teachers have never done classroom circles, they've never done mindfulness, and they're like, what the heck is this? There is videos of our teachers training them on it. There is resources to get started and we give them tips. So if SEL, all of this is new, I would highly recommend doing some PD around some of those areas. But with right now with the pandemic, we don't have time to pull our teachers out. So they can do it on their own time. So we have videos for that. So if they wanted to go on here, there's a lot of really cool stuff. Everything I shared with you is on this website, including additional stuff. So if there's new things that we come up with, they're going to be on the website. They might not be on your folder, but they'll definitely be on the website. So does anybody have any questions? It's 4:12, and I want to make sure that we make time for anything. Let's do, have you all been able to access that survey? Did you have an issue with it anymore? I know we were working on it. Were you guys able to complete it? Thumbs up if you're able to have access to it now. Okay, good.
Okay, we got a couple of thumbs up. Okay, great.
Yay. So
Excellent.
please complete it, and we will do our final share out for the day. And if you haven't completed, please do so before we do our final share out. So we
Actually,
can go
we
into
talk a little bit on our future
yeah.
training opportunities, because I know we've got a couple of those coming up. Let me share again.
Thank you, Catherine. She has to leave early, but thank you for joining.
Thank you for being here. All right. Okay, so we have a few different training opportunities. One is for community of equitable and inclusive practices. And then we also have the restorative practices, which we've already done a bit of in Washington. But obviously we want to be able to offer these resources to everybody. So if these are a little more intensive, we've got a 6-hour training for the equitable and inclusive practices, and then a 12-hour for restorative practices. Don't worry, it's not all done in one day. We're not going to sit there all day long. Everybody bring cots. No, so it's broken up into different days so that it is so that everybody is able to access it in, some smaller chunks and really absorb the information. But it is at no cost to the participants. So please, if you are interested, let folks know. We have Nico's information here at the bottom. And he's actually in the room with us today. So he would be the one to contact if that's something that you're interested in. Restorative practices is incredible for that relationship piece. Liz talked a little bit about restoring those relationships, and that's essentially what this is. But even beyond that, it really is about connecting the students together as a community. So even before, and hopefully nothing goes wrong, right? But even before anything has gone wrong, you're already building that community within your room, within your schools, so that you really you're prepared, you're ready, you're preventing a lot of potential problems. But then when problems do come up, then you have the tools to be able to resolve them. So both of these incredible trainings, we definitely highly recommend them. Am I missing anything on these, guys? No, good.
I think they're great opportunities. And if you have the opportunity, please go to these trainings, because this is probably something that I would have benefit from as an educator. Like I mentioned my story, when I had that issue with restoring a relationship with a student, I didn't have the skill set, and if you have any opportunities and it is at no cost, I would take that. So there's nothing better than jumping on this opportunity and even building capacity at your school site. So this is an amazing opportunity. So thank you guys for putting that together.
And Jeannie, too.
I just want to point out one thing is that our grant or our part ends on June 30th. So if you are interested, please contact and don't hesitate. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know. So these are definitely a great opportunity coming up. Well, that's always available. Just let us know if you're interested. And then our next shorter webinar, kind of like this one, is going to be next week. And I will be presenting that one with another colleague of mine. Unfortunately, the great and wonderful Liz isn't going to be here on this one, but we'll be talking about the 6 critical components to a successful return to school. So I know that's just really heavy on everybody's minds with students coming back on campus. And we will be addressing some of that trauma piece, which we didn't go into as much today, but that one is going to hit that a little bit harder. So just stuff for you all to know. Hopefully you can all make it. Please register. If you are interested, I don't know if, let's see if maybe I can get this link in the chat for folks in case, no, I can't.
We'll put it on there.
Okay. Oh, see, look at that. Nico's always ahead of me on these things. Thank you, Nico. So if you are interested in next week's, please feel free to go in there and register. Other than that, then we're just thank everybody for being here. If you do have other questions, please feel free to just jump in. Or if I know sometimes folks need to jump out, we want to honor your time as well. But please let us know. We're definitely here. We're going to hang out for a little bit longer in case you would like to chat a little bit more. If you have any questions, if you need help finding anything in the drive. But thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you all so much. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one.